Hi, it's Mr. G here, and today we're going to be looking at are markets efficient? And we know that efficiency happens when marginal benefit is equal to marginal cost. And we learned in previous videos that marginal benefit is equal to the demand curve, marginal cost is equal to supply curve, so where demand is equal to supplies or equilibrium, but that is also where markets are efficient. And so in that way, it's at the same point. But if we're looking at it in terms of marginal benefit and marginal cost, we have the consumer surplus and the producer surplus. And this total surplus is when you add those both up, producer surplus plus consumer surplus. So if you look at when total surplus is maximized, okay, it doesn't mean that they have to be equal. It doesn't mean that consumer surplus and producer surplus have to be the same. It's when total surplus, which is the addition of both of those, is maximized. And at that point, you have an efficient allocation, or it is an efficient quantity. And so if you're looking at it, we would never have a situation where marginal cost is greater than marginal benefit. If you think about it, if the cost of doing something to you is way more than the benefit you receive, so if you pay $100 for a drink that you like it, but it's not worth $100, you wouldn't do that. Okay, and so we would never go in a situation where that happens because the buyer seeks the lowest price, seller seeks the highest price. And it's this self-interest that essentially works in our market economy. The seller working out for their own self-good or their self-interest. Because for a seller, why would they sell something really cheap where they barely make any money off of it if they could use the resources and make more money somewhere else? They would just stop producing whatever, or change businesses, or go out of business, or whatever it might be. So unless they get, a normal amount of profit essentially on it, or earn a certain amount with it, they're not going to produce it because there's other opportunities for them. And so if you look at it, everyone's looking out in their own self-interest. The buyer's looking out, well, they want their benefit to at least equal the cost of it, okay, or their benefit actually higher than the cost. But they never go where the marginal cost is higher than the benefit. And with the seller as well, they have to make sure that they're getting a good price on it, essentially, otherwise they would look at other things. So everyone looking out for their own self-interest. Adam Smith said, each participant in a competitive market is led by an invisible hand to promote and end efficient use of resources, which was no part of his intention. So what does that actually mean? Well, it means that everyone looking out for their own self-interest actually creates efficiency in our market, but that's not what you're striving to do. You're not, when you're going out and you're buying, a drink, or you're going to fast food, you're not thinking, I'm really hoping I'm making the market efficient right now. That's not your intention. Your intention is looking out for your own self-interest. I have this amount of money. I'm willing to pay that for the benefit I'm receiving from this. But the end result is that you have an efficient system. Now, market failure is when we do not have an efficient system. So first of all, underproduction. So where marginal benefit is greater than marginal cost, at that point, we're not producing enough. We could still produce more, even though we don't get as much extra benefit from it. We still could produce more until marginal benefit is equal to marginal cost. And where marginal cost is greater than marginal benefit, that's an overproduction. So we also don't want that because the cost is higher than any benefit we receive. And so we talk about a dead weight loss, a decrease in the total surpluses. So if we look at an underproduction thing, you can see that the marginal benefit is greater than the marginal cost. And now we have this area that's called the dead weight loss. This is an inefficiency. In this case, our total surplus is not being maximized. It's a dead weight loss. And then we have a situation of an overproduction. Okay, and in this particular case, we're producing too much. The cost is higher than the benefit. That as well is a dead weight loss. So dead weight loss is an area of a triangle. You can calculate it out just like you do consumer surplus, producer surplus. It cuts into consumer and producer surplus, so therefore you're not maximizing it, your total surplus, which of course then means that you're not an efficient market. So sources of market failure, price and quantity regulations. So say minimum wage. It often sounds good that we put in a minimum wage, but essentially you are creating an inefficient situation. Milk quotas in BC or in Canada, there are milk quotas where, they have a cap basically on how much can be produced, because that, of course, affects price. And so in that kind of situation, it's inefficient. Taxes and subsidies. Taxes is producing an underproduction. Okay, and subsidies create an overproduction. Externalities, negative and positive, and we'll cover those in future videos. Public goods and common resources, things like national defense, common resources, so we'll talk about that later as well. Monopoly. Having a monopoly situation where there's only one basically producer of a good also causes inefficiency and market failure, and we'll talk about that in later chapters as well in videos. And high transaction costs, okay? For example, waiting to use a tennis court, etc. All of these can be following basically market failures. All right, so that is market failures, and so our market's efficient. So you have to know, obviously, when markets are efficient, where marginal benefit equals marginal cost, where total surplus is being maximized, where you do not have a deadweight loss. And in those markets, you are efficient then. Okay, this is Mr. G. Bye for now.